Welcome to the CannAbiz Success Show. If you're a cannabis company owner or operator who's ready to scale your business, grow your profits, and plant the seeds to take your business to new heights, this show is for you. We'll share expert insights, industry trends, and actionable strategies to help you blaze a trail of success in the cannabis industry.
Welcome to the Cannabis Success Show. I'm your host, Guillermo Rodriguez. Today, we talk about the New Jersey market. We're interviewing Brian Dowling, CEO, and Joe Bellantoni, CFO of Sussex Cultivation. This is the first time we've had two guests on our show, so that's exciting. We're going to hear their journey, specifically for Brian, being a college athlete and then starting Sussex Cultivation in the emerging New Jersey market. Throughout that journey, he met Joe Bellantoni, who's the CFO, who had been in an established market in Oregon. And we get to hear about all those challenges in Oregon with regards to pricing, and then how they met and started Sussex Capital in New Jersey. And so I love what they have to say about how we can work together to push our industry forward. Make sure you stick around the end where he talks about what he's most excited about for his business in 2024. That's what's coming up on the Cannabis Success Show. Well, welcome to the Cannabis Success Show. I'm your host, Guillermo Rodriguez. Today, I'm joined by my co-host for the first time, Brett Adams. Brett, welcome to the show for the first time.
Thanks, Guillermo. It's good to be here. This is a long time coming. We've been working on this for a while. So
Yeah. Well, our mission here, and we were talking before the episode, is to just share stories of success from licensed operators, whether that's navigating a challenging legacy market and what comes from that with pricing, or emerging markets where it's difficult to get off the ground, where some programs have been delayed. I think New Jersey is definitely one of those that has taken some time to get off the ground. And so we're excited to have two guests from the New Jersey market. Today, we're talking with Brian Dowling. He's the CEO and founder of Sussex. And we also have Joe Bellantoni. He's the CFO. So, gentlemen, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here today.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
You bet. And, we're going to get into, the licensing process, where we're at in New Jersey in terms of launching that market. It's underway, as we can see. You're here today. But before we get into that, can we hear just, your story, how you got into the cannabis industry, maybe your background and how you got here today? Could start with Brian or Joe.
Sure. So my background is accounting and finance. I started my career at KPMG as a consultant. I worked in real estate development with a Saudi Arabian sheikh at Jmar Properties, and then moved to New Jersey, working for Great American Recreation, which was the owner of Action Park and Vernon Valley ski area. Then we migrated to golf operations and development at Crystal Springs Resort. From there, I went to the cannabis. I migrated to the cannabis industry in Oregon, where I developed actually 8 farms on one property down in Josephine County. Unfortunately, the market wasn't so strong there, so we're looking to repurpose that property. We still have the 8 licenses, but we moved to look to develop and open operations in New Jersey. That's where I met Brian and Chris.
So Oregon to New Jersey, that's quite the gap. How did you get from Oregon to New Jersey and get connected with somebody there?
Well, I live in New Jersey, so
okay.
So I live in New Jersey. We were operating remotely. We had an excellent farm team out in Oregon, but unfortunately, it's just the market was saturated. We got in it in 2018, and it just slowly just disintegrated, unfortunately.
And was there something specific that drove you to cannabis? I mean, to jump from finance and accounting, right? Being a CPA myself, making that jump it's quite the gap.
Actually, it was an excellent opportunity, and you need the same skill sets in cannabis. So to me, it was just a natural progression. I had a lot of exposure in different industries, so for me, I was able to, we're actually developing the property out in Oregon, so I was able to, utilize my project management skills, my budgeting skills, financing, all that came into play. Just managing and working with people. So it was good synergies.
Cool.
And Joe, for those who aren't as familiar, when you say the Oregon market was challenging, sure you're referring to wholesale prices from the time you started until the time you exited that market. Can you talk a little bit about what that pricing was and how you as a finance person
Sure.
could tell that that those prices weren't sustainable or operating in that environment?
Absolutely. So when we got into the market, pricing for the uh, the greenhouse grows were per pound were over $2,000, $3,000, and the outdoor grows were 1,500. Now, an outdoor grow will get you 150 to 250 per pound, and indoor or greenhouse grow will get you 650 a pound, 450 to 650 per pound, and it's absolutely challenging. However, we did readjust. We were going in the market with a combo grow strategy, but just backed off the outdoor. I mean, the indoor, and just focused on a total outdoor strategy. And even then, we refocused on growing not for flower but for oil, which it costs a lot less to grow, and there's margins there. So we're able to break even where a lot of grows out there were going under.
And then can you take us to the point in the story where you and Brian connected and headed to where you are today?
Sure. So I have a partner. I had a partner in New Jersey that was actually my partner out in Oregon, and so we were looking to grow out in New Jersey. Brian was also looking to grow in New Jersey, and so I met Brian through my former partner who had a farm in Vernon, New Jersey, and we had a good connection. We worked together well, and we each have our strengths and weaknesses, and I think there's good synergies there. Absolutely.
Cool.
And what can you take us to the licensing process, kind of the initial launch, how long it's been? I think for listeners too, those who aren't in the New Jersey market have a kind of a perspective of how long it's taken, or maybe for you, you have a different perspective in how your experience has been throughout that licensing process. Can you kind of just take us through the timing?
Sure. So we originally we applied for a medical license. It was a competitive strategy to get into the market. It was we had to put in an application. We had to show that we had control of the land, but most importantly, it was a competitive entry, and which was scored. I think we did relatively well, but at the end of the day, we didn't make that cut. We then went forward on the recreational side, which I think at the end of the day is to our benefit, getting right into the recreational market.
Yeah, and some background on that. So we had applied for the 2019 North Jersey cultivation license, and they were actually giving one license in North Jersey, one license in Central Jersey, and one in South Jersey. But we learned a lot through that medical process. And ironically, the adult use applications opened up, maybe 2 months after we got the results for the medical. So kind of just transitioned into the adult use.
And so thinking through the business model, then you applied for cultivation. Did you simultaneously apply for manufacturing, or how's New Jersey's licensing process? Is that two different licenses for manufacturing and the cultivation side? And what's the timing of the two licenses being awarded?
You want to go on?
Yeah, well, so we originally went in for cultivation, and then while that cultivation license was being reviewed, we applied for the manufacturing license. So we were working on them both simultaneously, and although we started out with the cultivation, we actually got our manufacturing license ahead of cultivation. So in that process, we just received our manufacturing license in April of 24. So it's been some time. The more difficult challenges in New Jersey were actually getting approvals, local approvals.
And has the retail side. So can you talk about your business model? Because you're in cultivation, you're doing the manufacturing side, the retail side has to get off the ground fast enough for all these parts to work together, right? So how about the retail side of the market? Has that gotten off the ground fast enough from when you had your licenses issued, or can you share some of that?
You know, we can't complain. You know, in our current dynamic of the market, you know, we have, I believe, like 15 to 20 producers of product, and we have, I believe, above 150 dispensaries. So we all know the experiences that come in saturated markets. So as a producer, I always preach this to our team. We would be foolish to complain because the dynamic could be much worse. Now, we're not naive to what's going to come here in New Jersey, but we're just fortunate early on that we do have an opportunity to approach dispensaries, and there is not a lot of competition out there. So I think ultimately all of us want to enhance the customer experience here in New Jersey. We're going to do our part on that, but the dispensaries just want more brands and more licenses operational to be able to do that. So, you know, it's gone good so far, but ultimately we're only in control of so much of that, and we'll see how quickly things saturate.
Yeah. So Brian, I'd like for you to expand on the enhancing the customer experience part. But why don't we back up just a minute? Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us your story? I don't think we got your story yet.
Yeah, so you know, from my standpoint, I was actually a college athlete that you know, I mentioned that because cannabis and athletics don't always go hand in hand, especially when you're being tested for cannabis products in college. But after college, like most athletes, I had ambitions to play at the pro level. I went down that route while working with my family's company. And fortunately, my family's company is a healthcare staffing firm in the North Jersey area. And I say that because it has a lot of experience in regulations. So due to that, I was able to learn a lot about, you know, highly regulated businesses, specifically in the tri-state area, and tried to use some of that experience and correlate it to something I was a little bit more passionate about, which is cannabis. And through that, you know, our family was all in on it, and we've just built a great operation. That's more of a high level, you know, from my personal, you know, I guess you could say, experience. How I feel Joe and I connected is as my family made the decision to try and get into the industry, we were vetting different properties, and we happened to meet Joe's business partner. Joe was sitting at the end of the table. He clearly had a wealth of knowledge and experience, and he was passionate about it. So it just made perfect sense for our family to link up with him. And we've been together for about 4.5 years, 5 years since.
Cool. And so you mentioned enhancing the customer experience. What are you guys doing in that field to try to do that?
Great question. I think first and foremost, everyone could do it. The decision is, you know, are the individuals who are making those decisions, are the shareholders of the companies, you know, willing to make those decisions? And what do I mean by that? Well, everybody could put a high quality product out there, and ultimately that's all we're trying to do. The different variables that go into that, and the decisions that have to be made, and maybe the sacrifices that have to be made to do that, I think we're willing to make to ultimately benefit the customer. Things like you know, focusing on a solventless product, even though it may not yield, you know, the way a hydrocarbon product or a distillate product does, because we ultimately feel that the customer deserves that experience. biomass is so expensive in New Jersey. Are people really willing to buy biomass and produce a solventless product, knowing that ROI may not be where they want it to be early on? When you come to the cultivation side of things, are you willing to take the living soil? I stay away from the word organic, but more of I guess you could say, an organic approach, due to the fact that there's some risk with that. The yields may not be where you want them to be. Some of the R&D stages may take longer than you may originally anticipated. You have the capital to deal with those things. So from our ownership standpoint, we've made the conscious decision to invest in the right approach, hoping that ultimately we give the customer a good experience, and that will take up market share in the long run, rather than maybe just chasing some profits early on and putting out I guess you could say, a subpar product.
Yeah, so taking that long-term approach, and Brian, you talked about solventless. From a consumer standpoint, can you explain why a consumer would be even interested in the extraction methods that are being used? Why solventless is something that consumers really should demand and look out for when they're choosing products?
Yeah, what I've learned is it's really just education, right? I don't know that the customer really understands the difference. They definitely do in more mature markets, so we're just trying to do our part in educating the customer. I think a simplified way to explain it would be extracting the essential compounds from the cannabis plant chemical free. And when you use the term chemical free, in the current dynamics of the world, I think that can go a long way with some people.
Yeah. So what you're saying is solventless is it's safer. There's less chemicals for a consumer who's looking out for, particularly new consumers. I think tend to be more educated, and they're looking for values within their products, and safer products that use solventless methods. A lot of consumers are looking for that, right? When you say it comes down to education, how do you feel this education is happening? Because it does take some time, right? Especially in newer markets. You mentioned mature markets, consumers, they know, and they've been around a while. But in a market like New Jersey, is this something that's communicated through maybe through your brand messaging, through you spoke
Product
at
packaging,
different
things like that.
conferences and packaging? We're talking about it today. I think what I'm getting at is, what are some of the ways that we can all educate consumers much more effectively than we have been?
Great question. I'll go first, and then Joe, I'd love to hear your opinion. Yeah. But first and foremost, it starts with us educating the bud tenders, right? And providing them with enough information so that they can teach the customer what they're spending their money on. And then I think if you take it a step further, some of the things you guys are mentioned is spot on. You want to hit social media elements, maybe on your website, maybe on your packaging. Honestly, I think it's more subjective than objective. I don't think there's one way to do it. I think anything that's a creative approach that's going to educate the customer and get them more interested in learning about the dynamics that goes into making their product, I think that's beneficial in the long run. So we're going to keep doing our part, but I also truly believe, and some people won't admit this, but it's going to be our competitors combined with us that are going to do that, right? More people coming to New Jersey, doing solventless, pushing the envelope, having higher expectations, doing pop-up events at the dispensaries, educating the customer. The market will start to saturate, prices will start to drop. People will be more willing to come in and purchase products rather than maybe turning to their black market. So that's really my perspective. Joe, how about you?
No, I agree. Social media, our website, but I believe most importantly are those pop-ups that we'll have at dispensaries, getting our director of manufacturing and team out to those dispensaries, and teaching them on the differences between the various manufacturing techniques.
So the big news in the industry obviously is the rescheduling coming down from the DEA. How are you guys preparing for that, if at all? And how do you think that'll impact what you guys are doing?
Sure, you can go first.
Well, for me, and until the 280E changes, so that's really what I'm looking for, is to have that change in 280E. Right now, we're working in compliance with that rule, that regulation, and other than that, banking, once banking frees up, that'll also be an additional significant benefit to the to the industry. And when I say banking, more financing. Right now, the rates for financing are typically 15 to 18% and sometimes higher.
Yeah. One of the points I always make is that it's the reschedule doesn't necessarily equal safe banking, right? It's could be more likely, but it does make every cannabis company that has been previously subject to 280 more bankable, right? Better credit
Yep.
and more access to capital because you're just more profitable and able to generate more cash flow. It's like insurance, right? If you're a safe driver, you can get insurance, but you don't really need it. And then maybe the analogy's not right, but
No, that's a good. That's a good one.
you're making a ton of cash now, and now everybody wants to let you borrow money. But yeah, that is like not necessarily the path, but an impact that I think that the reschedule is going to have is that companies can generate more cash and they'll have better credit and access to capital, and more banks will be willing to lend. Another part of it is, being in a new market. Joe, I know you've been subject to 280 for many years in the Oregon market, but one of the things I really hear, and I think this is a great point, is that for those who are in new markets, you're really starting out without that burden, right? And so I think the challenge has been for companies who've operated under such a high effective tax rate for like 10 years, especially in the legacy market. So starting in without that burden in your first year, that's such a great start to be able to potentially start in that manner.
Absolutely. And being in cultivation and manufacture, we're impacted significantly with 280, but not as significant.
Not as much, yeah.
As that's right.
We interviewed actually someone from the Oregon market a couple of weeks ago, and she mentioned, well, I'm just not as excited because I'm a cultivator, meaning that the burden wasn't as high.
Correct.
And so that's a great point. Well, let's go into manufacturing, cultivation. Can you talk about, is New Jersey a market where there is limited strains? Are you competing more on the strains or the various SKUs that you're able to offer from the manufacturing side? Could you maybe talk about your brand and maybe which particular, are you focusing on any particular form factors as you're entering the market on the manufacturing side, or how do you think about that?
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. Strains is probably a little bit of an issue for all manufacturers, especially if you're not cultivating your own product, right? I would say, and I don't have the accurate number, but I would say there's like maybe 10 to 15 grows operating, and they're not massive. So trying to identify maybe washers or solventless, strains. I think the few of us that are doing it are all hunting for the same ones. So we're hoping that as biomass becomes more readily available and as we start growing, that'll give the versatility for more people.
So then another way of saying that New Jersey, similar to Maryland, is still kind of in that situation. It's a bit limited and still on the path there. And from the manufacturing side, which how many SKUs are you carrying, or where you focus there on the manufacturing side?
We have, I want to say anywhere between, I got to go check. We just got some new test results and some new SKUs, but I think we have maybe between like 7 to 10 different products. I know between our hydrocarbon lab and our solventless lab, we would like to have as many as possible. From our standpoint, it's dialing in the quality control on each individual SKU, understanding the data and the biomass that needs to be allocated to specific ones. But we're pushing our team to get as many out there as quickly as possible. It's actually been a major topic of conversation.
And with respect to the number of strains, one of our growth strategies is to implement a pheno hunting strategy, new strains, developing new strains. So we're very big on that.
And one other topic is you're a new market, but what you keep hearing out there is the consolidation that's happening, right? It's inevitable just to where the overall industry is. Um, you're a new licensee, but are you just being approached about consolidation? Is this something that you're seeing even in a new market like New Jersey? Because I think we've seen it in New Jersey, even new markets like Missouri, like where Brent
Yeah.
is.
Do you mean from like a white label and like a co-manufacturing opportunity, like brands trying to come into the state?
That as well as like
Acquisitions.
or like a lot of interest in companies trying to buy other companies.
So acquisition standpoint, we've been approached once, but we're from New Jersey. I think we've always, Joe and I and our families have always been aligned on how we want to build this thing, and then when we want to approach that dynamic, Chris has a lot of, our investor has a lot of experience in actually selling companies, specifically in the private equity arena. So when the time is right, we'll approach that. But to be completely transparent, we don't really entertain any of that right now because we feel like we have so much growth in the next 6 to 12 months to do here that our focus is on really enhancing what we're doing here, and then being able to prove our concept at a large scale and then have those conversations.
Yeah, I think we're looking at the market as a whole, like at the big picture, right? So we here in Missouri, we are seeing there's 2 or 3 kind of big dogs, if you will, on the porch that are coming through, and they're scooping up everybody that they can. One issue that we've seen here in Missouri is, Joe, to your point earlier, because prices have kind of come down a little bit, there's a lot of labs that just aren't profitable here in Missouri. And the bigger entities have the ability to come in and optimize and put in some efficiencies, and they also have the capital to absorb some of those losses because it's now a vertical market for them where they own from cultivation all the way up through retail. They can afford to take a little bit of a loss on the lab because their margins and stuff like that are better at retail or in the cultivation side. So we are seeing that some here in Missouri. I was curious if we were seeing that there in New Jersey too.
I don't think we're there yet, but ultimately, if the business model obviously has been proven to work, there's only time. There's time will ultimately show us what will happen in New Jersey. I will give you a little bit of an understanding of our full perspective from a long-term approach. We do have retail in mind. My wife applied for and actually had one of the first conditional retail licenses in New Jersey. Now, if you guys have experience in New Jersey, you have to take the conditional and get it to an annual license before it becomes operational. We kind of pivoted, and our focus was on cultivation and manufacturing. Being that we have local ties in New Jersey, we definitely have some municipalities in mind that we would like to approach with the retail operation when they change some of their ordinances and they become more welcoming to cannabis. So that's also part of our strategy that aligns with when we'd be looking to maybe move on or get acquired by a bigger operation is once we were vertically integrated. So I don't want to act arrogant and say, we have all these resources and we can compete with them. But we like to think that here in New Jersey, we have enough resources, connections, and a long-term plan that we'll be hopefully one of the staple local brands that makes it in the long run as things start to saturate here and people start to get squeezed.
Yeah, and so for someone thinking through, does it make sense to head into the retail side of things, different businesses, right? What should you be thinking through as you're trying to enter the retail side, if you're becoming vertically integrated? You mentioned one is that I think sometimes the considerations at the very like ultra local level aren't there, right? And there's a lot of challenges at the local level. um, even I think some folks don't know that even in a state of California, you just still have a majority of uh, municipalities that don't allow cannabis or have ordinance against it. You pointed to that, and that's a big consideration. Is there some other things to be looking out for
Well,
at entry?
I would get even more specific. If you look in New Jersey, the way they've drafted these ordinances, the town has zoned these properties where the retail locations are right on top of each other, and they're not necessarily too appealing. So I think New Jersey has a lot of work to do, as maybe other states do, in maybe redrafting some of these ordinances and introducing some more real estate to these retail operations that, one, creates a better situation for the one existing in town so they're not right on top of each other, but two, creates a dynamic where it does hit more customers. And I'm sure that's a problem in a lot of in a lot of states, but I know in New Jersey it's a major issue. You got some small towns, we've talked about it, where they've approved and given out signed resolutions for 7 retail locations in a 2-mile radius. So at a certain point, the municipality should take some responsibility and try and create a better situation for their businesses to succeed in the long run.
Yeah, that runs into the not in my backyard philosophy, right? Everybody, oh, we're so welcoming. Just don't build it right next to me.
That is spot on. That's exactly how it is. We'll take the tax revenue, but we don't want it to. We almost want them to think it's in a different municipality. It's interesting how they do
Yeah,
it.
the only business model that works for is Starbucks, because the franchisee owns all those locations, or they're all corporate owned, so they can absorb each other, and it spreads the brand. But in this situation, it doesn't work. So you talked about that at the local level. I think we're dealing with going back to Missouri, right? High excise tax, sales tax, some stack taxes, and other. Uh, the municipalities want it, but they don't always talk to each other, and how the taxing is affecting the consumer, and essentially pushing people back into the unregulated market. Can you talk about the situation in New Jersey with regards to how the local governments are dealing with, the excise tax, sales tax at the local level, in the New Jersey market?
So in New Jersey, so in Vernon, in New Jersey in general, there's a social equity fee that's paid at the cultivation level, and that's $1.24 per pound. And then on the manufacturing level, there is a transfer tax, which is 2% of gross sales. So there's definitely opportunity there for New Jersey and Vernon in particular to generate funds from cannabis. I believe I don't believe there's any additional. There may be a 2% transfer fee on the dispensary, but there's definitely a sales tax. Not like other states where they're paying outrageous sales tax, but it's reasonable.
And we're very fortunate to have gotten in early, because what we are seeing, and I'm sure you've seen it, is municipalities are starting to put in this ridiculous application fee. And that's where you guys can do your own homework. There are I think, some lawsuits in New Jersey just due to the fact that you're charging somebody such a ridiculous application fee, and then they find out there might have been a personal relationship behind the scenes making decisions on, who got the approval. So you guys could do some homework on that. But we've seen more recently towns taking advantage of that, and that's definitely compromised some businesses.
Yeah, ours. So here in Missouri, I think it was medical first in 2015, something like that. I may have my dates mixed up there, but the way I actually got my start in the cannabis industry is I had there's a very prominent attorney in Kansas City, had some people approach him who wanted to apply for a medical cannabis grow license, right? And it's a group of kids from Colorado. They all kind of had a little bit of experience at their own dispensaries. They all came together to form this group, and they wanted to make sure that they were doing everything the right way. So the attorney called me and said, "Hey, I've got this group of people. They don't have a ton of money, but they need some pro formas to be put together because they need to go get some financing or some investments to apply for the license fee, because just the license fee alone was $25,000." And it was only, there was no guarantee you were going to get it, and it was a non-refundable fee. So
Wow.
even if you didn't get it, it was just a sunk cost that, you're like, hey, I may be throwing $25,000 down the drain here. So ultimately they did end up getting, we produced those pro formas for them. It was I really kind of fell in love with all of the research and data and stuff like that came out of it. Looking at some of the grow periods and harvest times and stuff like that. I love data. And so going through that was just, it was like eating, candy to me. Like, this is fantastic. They did get the approval for the funding, and they did apply. They weren't selected, unfortunately, but yeah, some of those ridiculous license fees are crazy. It's insane.
You're right.
And even, the attorney fees and consulting. I with a woman out up in Massachusetts, and she went through $1 million of due diligence fees and never received a license.
Yep.
Terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we got endless stories on these in different markets. I'll share mine from Texas, but our legislature meets every couple of years, and there was, I forget the number, but there was various licenses because they were looking to expand the medical program, and of course didn't move forward, but all these license fees were lost as well. And there's just story after story like that on the various states on the amount of risk that's involved in applying, especially where there's so much uncertainty and so much political opposition, like in a state like Texas. So as we're getting closer here to the end, I just want to make sure we touch on, you're looking to connect with retailers. That's your end customer. We talk a lot about relationships between vendors, retailers. Can you maybe tell us about what it's like, what a retailer can expect in terms of working with you, and just touch on the importance of managing good relationships in the cannabis industry, because I think that's been a really a key to success and something that we always talk about. Can you touch on those two things before we wrap up?
Yeah, from my standpoint, I think transparency and consistency. So, we are customers first. We care about the customer. Joe and I, we go back and forth on this, but his job is to drive profits, and I joke, my job is to protect the customer. So at the end of the day, I think we've worked together, and we've had a good approach on that. But that's my perspective on it.
I never saw a business that went out of business because they made sales. I think sales are very, very important. I agree with Brian, and communication. We do a tremendous job communicating with our customers, and we're constantly visiting and communicating with them, and bringing them up to speed of what's coming online and all that. So it's very, very important to communicate.
And one thing that I think we do that I think everyone appreciates in all industries is we have some humility here. We're not afraid to admit if we're wrong on something, and communicate with people and say, oh, you know what? Thank you for that feedback. We're going to make that change. We wouldn't have known that if we didn't have this conversation. So there's a lot of egos in this industry, and we are from North Jersey, and there's some egos in this building. So I have one myself, but ultimately I like to think that we truly care about the customer experience. So we have some humility in being able to be approached and tell us how we can do things better. Because, we think that will enhance the customer experience.
Yeah, absolutely. We're a service provider, right? CPAs, we're a virtual CFO firm, and it nothing can ruin a relationship more than just not being transparent up front about what did go wrong, trying to address it as soon as possible. But without that transparency and that honesty, it could ruin relationships. And so that's something that really resonates with us. And maybe one last question as we wrap up is what are you most excited about in the coming year? And let's wrap up with that because we have the reschedule that we already talked about. The New Jersey market is growing, and so I think any final thoughts on what you're most excited about in the coming year?
Joe, you go
Guillermo,
first.
you read my mind. That was going to be my last question that I tried to sneak in here. So
Actually, I look forward to seeing our cultivation, facility up and running. Our head grower is very, very passionate about growing, and he's just been chomping at the bit to get into that. And I really want to see him succeed there, and I know he will. But that's one thing I look forward to, and then all the synergies that will be achieved by integrating both the cultivation and manufacturing, and going through all that analysis as to what goes to flower, what goes to manufacturing. But I do want to see our team, our growth team, is really excited about getting in there, and I would really like to see that happen. It's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd like to see it all come together. You guys know this in this industry. Sometimes you're in real estate. Sometimes you feel like you're working under a legal team. Other times you're in engineering and design. Then you're raising capital. Then you're building out a team. And I think we're getting to a point, hopefully, by the end of the year, we can really just focus on running our cannabis business. And that's exciting for us because, our family has sacrificed a lot. It's been about 4 to 5 years. So one step at a time. But if by the end of the year we can have some great flower and some good manufactured products and, take care of our team, I think we'll be very satisfied.
Yeah, well, congratulations on being early in the market. I know it is a challenge, and right, it's one of the only industries where we've talked so much about regulation, and it makes it difficult to just get down to the basics and the fundamentals of profitability and operation. So I can appreciate the challenges it's been for you and your family over many years, and the challenges that Joe, you've had in a legacy market like Oregon. But I just want to thank you for your time today. I know our listeners will find this hugely valuable. Your experiences in the Oregon market and then in the New Jersey market. Thank you for sharing your perspective. We wish you lots of luck in this first year and lots of exciting things going on. So thank you for being on the show today. I keep saying this is the last question, but where can people find you?
Yeah, actually, if you check out, right now we have a big presence on our Instagram. We have our at Sussex Cultivation and at Onyx, New Jersey. And from there, we're going to be doing a big update on what dispensaries they can specifically find us in. And we're actually overhauling our website. So our website will start to identify what products we do have and where you can find them. So, and that is www.sussexcultivation.com.
sussexcultivation.com. Brian and Joe, thank you again.
Thank you.
Thanks to all our listeners for joining us today, and we'll see you next time on the Cannabis Success Show.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Enjoy this podcast? Visit our website, anderscpa.com/virtual-CFO-cannabis to get more tips and strategy for achieving business success in the cannabis industry.